What if the guy patching your roof in steel-toe boots quietly knew more about building wealth than the suits on Wall Street? Because that's exactly what happened with a 23-year-old roofer named Eddie Carter. He didn't invent an app. He didn't go viral. He climbed ladders, hauled shingles, and almost lost everything on one catastrophic job, then somehow came back to build an 8-figure roofing company and a multi-million-dollar net worth. Today on Work Boots to Wealth, we're breaking down how a broke installer with a rusted pickup went from dodging debt collectors to owning warehouses, crews, and real estate, and what you can steal from his playbook before your next Monday morning. We'll cover the job that nearly bankrupted him, the shady subcontractor who almost took him down, and the 3 money rules he wished someone had drilled into him on day one. Ask yourself this as we dive in: are you building a business, or just buying yourself a low-paying job with extra stress? Eddie grew up in a small Midwestern town where retirement plan meant hoping your knees lasted until 60. His dad hung drywall, his mom cleaned houses. Money showed up on Friday and disappeared by Monday. At 16, Eddie dropped out of community college after 1 semester. He hated classrooms but loved fixing things. He started as the lowest guy on a roofing crew, packing tear-off into dumpsters, sweeping nails, being the one everyone yelled at when the compressor hose kinked. His first winter, he made just enough to keep the lights on. But something about watching the crew boss collect the check at the end of each job nagged at him. Why was the guy with the dirtiest boots making the cleanest money? One evening, huddled in a freezing garage, Eddie borrowed his foreman's estimate sheets and started copying them by hand. He circled material numbers, labor hours, disposal costs. He realized the company wasn't surviving on the $8,000 roofs. They were surviving on gross margin. The rich count profit, not paychecks. Over the next 2 years, Eddie quietly became the crew's Swiss Army knife. He learned how to read plans, how to talk to inspectors, how to upsell gutters without sounding salesy, and most importantly, how to win the homeowner's trust in under 5 minutes. He also noticed something disturbing: a lot of small roofing outfits died not because they couldn't sell work, but because they didn't understand timing and cash. Checks came in after materials were bought, after labor was paid, after the owner's credit cards had been maxed just one more time. You ever feel like your business is busy but your bank account is empty? At 23, after a screaming match with his boss over a botched bonus, Eddie quit midweek. He had $912 in his checking account, a pickup that burned as much oil as gas, and no backup plan. He printed 20 cheap yard signs. Carter Roofing, call or text for free inspection. He dug an old ladder out of a pawn shop. His office was the front seat of his truck. The first month, he booked 2 tiny repairs and a dog bit his boot. The second month, a hailstorm hit the next town over. That storm changed everything. Eddie drove through the damaged neighborhoods at dawn, knocking doors, offering free emergency tarps to anyone who'd answer. He didn't have slick sales lines, just a beat-up clipboard and an honest face. While other crews were still drinking coffee, Eddie was already on the second roof of the day, taking photos and texting updates. In 3 chaotic weeks, he sold $120,000 worth of work. For the first time in his life, he had more money coming in than excuses going out. Instead of saving, he celebrated. He upgraded his truck. He bought new tools. He treated his friends. And he underpriced almost every job because it still looked like a lot of money on paper. That innocent mistake would sneak back later like a wrecking ball. By year 3, Carter Roofing was pulling just over $1.7 million in revenue. Eddie had 7 employees, 2 leased warehouses, and a business account that bounced between comfortable and cardiac arrest-inducing. From the outside, he looked successful. On the inside, he was exhausted, constantly putting out fires, and quietly terrified of one thing: a job so big that if it went wrong, it could sink him. Naturally, that's exactly what showed up. A property manager from the city called with what sounded like a dream. A 64-unit apartment complex with rotten roofs, rotten gutters, and a rotten reputation. Word was, the owner was desperate to get it fixed before selling. The property manager said, "We're getting numbers, but if you can keep it under 900,000 and move fast, we'll probably go with you." That number short-circuited Eddie's brain. 900,000. He could feel his chest buzzing. One contract bigger than his entire first year in business. He did some fast math on a notepad, shaved his margins to look aggressive, and sent the bid at $842,000. They accepted within an hour. If a giant buyer doesn't negotiate your price, you underpriced it. Lesson number 1, if the other side says yes too fast, you probably just gave away your profit. Eddie didn't know that yet. He celebrated like he'd won the lottery. He signed the contract, high-fived his crew, and started ordering materials. That's when things started breaking. First, his main supplier called. "Hey man, prices just jumped. Shingles are up 12%, underlayment is up 6%. Global supply chain, you know how it is. 12% on a small job is annoying. 12% on an $842,000 job is a knife." Eddie had locked in his price with the property owner. There was no escalation clause, no, if materials go up, we adjust. He ate the increase. Then his foreman slipped on ice and tore his ACL. Suddenly the guy who ran the field was on crutches, and Eddie was juggling sales, project management, and babysitting a crew that wasn't used to apartment complex chaos. To save time, he took a shortcut that almost took him out of business. He hired a new subcontracting crew he barely knew, based mostly on a referral and the promise, "We'll do it cheap." Cheap labor is insanely expensive when it blows up on you. The new crew cut corners. They skipped flashing in hidden valleys. They didn't follow manufacturer specs on nail patterns. They left debris in gutters the tenants were already furious about. One lightning-filled night, a thunderstorm rolled in. By morning, 6 units had water damage. Drywall falling, tenants posting angry videos online, managers blowing up Eddie's phone. Insurance got involved. Lawyers got involved. So did something Eddie had never felt before, real fear. When the dust settled, the property owner's attorney claimed the leaks were due to improper installation and negligent supervision. They wanted everything fixed, plus compensation for tenant damage, over $400,000 beyond the original contract. Eddie sat across from his own lawyer as the numbers hit. If he lost, he was done. Not things will be tight done. Bankruptcy done. His lawyer's advice was brutal. Either we fight this for a year and risk losing everything, or you come to the table, own the mistakes, and negotiate hard. Eddie went home, opened his accounting software, and saw something uglier than any storm cloud. Even if the lawsuit vanished, his margins on that monster job were already razor thin. The material increases and rework had eaten almost all the profit. It finally hit him. He had built a big, busy, fragile business on tiny, invisible margins. The lawsuit was the punch, but his pricing was the glass jaw. He couldn't sleep. He stopped eating. He started getting chest pains that scared him enough to see a doctor. The doctor didn't sugarcoat it. Your stress markers are off the charts. Whatever you're doing, change it, or something's going to change it for you. Remember that supply and labor chaos we mentioned? It wasn't done. One of his workers, convinced they were getting stiffed because payroll was late, grabbed the rest of the crew and walked off the site midweek. Half the building was dried in. The other half was wide open. Rain in the forecast. Ever watched the business you bled for wobble on the edge of collapse? Eddie drove to the site at midnight, alone, in the rain. He climbed the slick plywood, stretched tarps until his hand shook, and personally nailed down what he could. He wasn't saving a roof. He was buying time. In the end, he settled the lawsuit. He agreed to eat a six-figure amount of repairs and upgrades. By the time everything was finished, he was $640,000 in debt, lines of credit maxed, and personally guaranteeing notes that could follow him for years. That would have been a perfect moment to quit, sell the truck, and go back to being someone else's problem solver. But here's where the story flips. Eddie did something unglamorous that most people avoid. He turned that disaster into a spreadsheet. He printed every single job from the last 3 years. He sorted them by margin, not by revenue. Then he highlighted in red every project where we were slammed but broke. A pattern popped out. Small insurance restoration jobs, especially after storms, had fat margins and fast payments. Big commercial jobs with thin bids and tight timelines were glamorous and lethal. Lesson number 2, chase the fattest margins, not the fanciest invoices. He went back to the complex owner and, in a move that shocked everyone, asked for a reference letter after fixing everything correctly. "Give me one line," he said. "Say we owned our mistakes and made it right." The owner, grudgingly impressed that this kid didn't disappear, agreed. That line became Eddie's quiet weapon. He stopped bidding on low-margin monster jobs. He niched down into residential and light commercial storm work where he could control quality and pricing. He changed his contracts to require a meaningful deposit before ordering materials. He added a clause that if materials spiked above a certain percentage, the job would be repriced together or cancelled. He also did something that sounds boring but saved his life. He built checklists. Every crew got a laminated, pre-closeout list. Photos required. Flashing details. Gutter cleanup. Nail sweep. Customer walkthrough script. No checklist, no final payment. Systems are just habits you can hand to someone else. Lesson number 3, document your process before chaos documents it for you. But systems alone don't sell roofs. People do. Eddie realized he was the bottleneck on every sale. If he got sick or stuck in court, sales stopped. So he decided to build a real sales team. He hired one hungry ex-bartender and one ex-delivery driver. No experience. Lots of grit. He paid them a base plus commission, then spent every afternoon riding along, listening, tweaking their pitch. He taught them to knock a door within 48 hours of a storm. Lead with value, free emergency top, no obligation, instead of pressure. Ask every happy customer for 3 introductions before leaving the driveway. Within 6 months, those 2 representatives were outselling Eddie. Within a year, he had 6 representatives, all running the same simple playbook. Revenue climbed back past $3 million, then $5 million, then $8 million, but here's what mattered. His profit percentage went up, not down, as he grew. You know that saying, more money, more problems? That's only for people scaling their chaos. Eddie scaled his rules. He made one non-negotiable. No job starts until we know our margin. If the gross margin wasn't at least 40% on paper, he either raised the price or walked away. He didn't care how big the number looked if the profit was thin. Some months, that meant fewer roofs. But every job that did land fed the business and the future instead of the debt monster. He also attacked his debt strategically. He listed his loans from smallest to largest and from highest to lowest interest. He knocked out a few small ones fast to build momentum, then hammered the high-interest ones with every extra dollar. For years after the nightmare complex job, he made his last payment on the last ugly note. The same week, he closed on a small warehouse he'd been renting. For the first time, he wasn't just in roofing. He owned a piece of commercial real estate that other contractors would one day rent from him. Here's where the wealth flywheel kicked in. Profitable jobs funded. Better crews. Better equipment. And down payments on income-producing assets that weren't tied to the weather. By age 35, Eddie owned a roofing company doing high 7 to low 8 figures in annual revenue, 3 small warehouses, and a handful of rental houses he bought slowly whenever cash was truly extra. He still drove a truck. He still wore work boots. But his kids weren't going to wonder if the lights would stay on. You might be thinking, okay, cool story, but I don't own a roofing business. How does this help me? Let's rip 3 takeaways you can use in any blue-collar game: landscaping, trucking, HVAC, you name it. First, respect your margins. If you don't know your true cost, materials, labor, overhead, mistakes, you're gambling, not building. Before every quote, ask, what's my real profit here if everything goes wrong once? Second, protect your cash flow like it's oxygen. Get deposits before you buy materials. Open a separate account for taxes and non-negotiable expenses. Secure lines of credit when times are good, not when you're gasping. Third, build simple systems so your business can work when you're not the one holding the nail gun. Write the checklist once, then make sure the crew lives by it. Record the sales script once, then train others until they sound better than you. And here's a bonus lesson Eddie learned the hardest way possible. If a single job can destroy your company, your risk is wrong. Diversify your clients. Cap how much of your yearly revenue any one contract can represent. Say no to deals that feel like they'd look great on Instagram but could crush you in court. Today, when storms hit, Eddie's trucks roll out like a small army. He still remembers that night alone on the plywood, rain cutting sideways, wondering if the business and his body were both about to fail. The difference now is that every roof he replaces, every crew he sends out, every check he deposits is backed by numbers, contracts, and systems designed to survive real life, not fantasy spreadsheets. So ask yourself, are you quietly building a strong, boring, profitable business, or chasing flashy revenue that could turn into your own apartment complex disaster? If this kind of real-world story and breakdown helps you think differently about your own path from work boots to real wealth, tap like so more blue-collar owners find work boots to wealth. And if you've got your own almost lost it all story, whether you're swinging hammers, driving rigs, or fixing furnaces, drop a quick version in the comments. We might turn it into a future episode. Until then, remember, the difference between a broke contractor and a wealthy one isn't luck. It's math, contracts, and the courage to walk away from bad deals. See you in the next one.